What do you do to fix blood sugars when it's not the blood sugar's fault, but rather that life itself is chaotic? See, with type 1 diabetes, the crazier life gets, I've found, at least for my own type 1 diabetes, the crazier blood sugars get as a result. The more difficult your schedule is and there's lack of routines, it's just more difficult the more chaos you introduce. And more recently, I got back from a week traveling through Europe. I was in Greece and it was beautiful and amazing and very difficult for blood sugars. As you might be able to tell, there's some sickness I was able to hold on to as well. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to essentially get by when life is crazy. You might need to adjust your expectations temporarily to keep your sanity. So in today's episode, I hope you find it useful. This is for when life is just too chaotic to focus on blood sugars. So you got to get your blood sugars to be a bit more automated. Though they may not be perfect, they're going to allow you to get by, to survive a chaotic time for maybe a week or two. So I hope you enjoy. I'll share some stories from the trip too. And if you don't know who I am, my name's Matt Vandevecht. I'm a certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist living with type 1 diabetes. And I learned a handful of difficult lessons while I was traveling this last week. So let's get into our theme song.
I've spent the last 10 years pushing the limits while identifying trends and patterns in my type 1 diabetes management. Follow along as I learn, apply, and share the fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle strategies that I've learned from diabetes experts around the world. The real question is, how can we live fearlessly with diabetes while maintaining stable blood sugars? This podcast is here to give you the answer. My name is Matt Vandevecht, head coach and co-founder of FTF Warrior, and welcome to Part of My Pancreas.
All right, so as you can tell and as you heard, I am sick. I have a number of challenges that I ran into while traveling, and I'm going to ask that my team hopefully edits out the coughing and the sick sounds that I'm probably going to make during this episode. But this episode honestly came on the back end of a difficult situation. It was just a trifecta of difficulties. It was the perfect storm for blood sugar chaos. So I go and travel to Greece. I was actually heading out there for my best friend's wedding, and I was going to be his best man. Sort of. The traditions are different, but being named best man, but then not being on stage with him because it was an Orthodox Christian ceremony, and there's just different things they do. And one of the things they don't do is groomsmen and bridesmaids. So I sat in the crowd, but was there for him in any capacity that I could be. So when I first arrived and felt just a little bit sick, was like, oh no, I'm the guy that he's depending on to make sure everything goes smoothly, and I'm already down for the count. And little did I know it would continue getting worse. Now, I got sick, which means you just kind of run down in general, but blood sugars also just don't behave well when you're sick, right? If you didn't know this, sickness absolutely impacts blood sugars. For me, most of the time with sicknesses in the past, I've seen blood sugars go up. My insulin needs increase. And it does depend on the type of sickness, but I also haven't been sick in like years. So I was a little out of practice, let's say. So being sick, I knew I had to rest more, and I knew that at the very least, I would need to limit my exercise. And the guy that I was there for, his wedding, he's also a fitness enthusiast, we'll say, just like me. So we actually planned on going for runs together around Crete, Greece, and brought my running shoes, my outfit and everything, brought some glucose and some electrolytes and all that. I was like, sorry, man, I got to cancel the runs. I'm so sorry, but I can't put my body under more stress because I'm going to get more sick for sure, right? Especially with all the wedding festivities and everything. So stopped my exercises. And for those of you who've been following for a while, you know that if you alter your level of activity, you're also going to see an adjustment in your insulin sensitivity. So I'm reducing my insulin sensitivity because I'm not working out, right? So I need more insulin, and I'm super sick, and I actually got more and more sick each day. And the sickness makes me more insulin resistant, makes my blood sugars go higher. So in both cases, I need more insulin times 2, right? Now, on top of that, of course, wedding festivities and the wedding night as well. It was a German woman marrying an American man in Greece. So we had the the convergence of 3 different cultures. It was beautiful. Really cool to see all the different languages and cultural traditions and all these things. But unfortunately, one of those traditions is that they go until the party stops. There is no cutoff time. And so we were up till like 2:30 in the morning, and I'm dancing the night away, right? But still very sick. And so they're not ideal for when you're sick to have to get very little sleep and then wake up the next day and go for a 10-mile hike. No, it wasn't 10 miles. But long story short, lack of sleep also can lead into insulin resistance, higher blood sugars. And so the entire week, at a basic level, I was very insulin resistant. We'll just call it that, right, as a foundational term. I needed a lot more insulin than I typically would. But I wasn't going to let diabetes hold me back from living my best life because I'm in Greece, right? I want to enjoy it. And I'm only out there for a week. And so I'm probably going to be sick the whole time, probably not going to kick this thing while I'm out of my element, jet lagged, different foods, no routines, right? I didn't have any medicine on me, which was such a bummer. Although honestly, I don't really take medicine typically. I prefer more like natural remedies if I can. Eat more fruits and veggies and drink your water, right? And get some sunshine, maybe take a multivitamin. But I just had my own thing. I'm not eager to throw pills at sickness, just my own preference. But that being said, I wasn't going to let diabetes hold me back. And that's what brings me to the topic of today's lesson, which is finding your MVP, or your minimum viable plan. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm here to support my best friend. I've got my other buddies here from the States. We're all coming together to enjoy and celebrate this momentous occasion. And so with the plan being to not let diabetes hold me back, I also needed to know how to survive so that diabetes didn't get in the way, right? So I can't ignore my diabetes because that could put me in DKA or in a severe low and land me in the hospital, and then more attention on me. I become the burden, right? As much as I hate to say it like that, that's what it would be. I would become a burden if my diabetes took me out. And so couldn't let that happen. And actually, for those who've been following my journey for a while, this was my first time back in Europe. And in 7 years, actually, just about. And the reason for that is that just over 7 years ago, I had a near-death experience in Europe when I was by myself traveling in a small town in France and almost died from an urgent low blood sugar. And it shook me to my core. I'll be completely honest. It challenged my mental health for a long time. I was pretty broken. So I'm having a hard time talking about this. Wow. I canceled all my trips. I was supposed to go to Portugal the next week, and I used to work as a model, so all the trips were for work, and I used to travel a ton, and then I just hard stop. I'm not traveling anymore because I was nervous, right? I didn't want to travel by myself. I almost died and was like, whoa. And if that's something that you wanted to hear the full story on, because we don't have time today, I'll give you a link at the end where we can talk about a training where I talk about that story and give you guys some gold nuggets as well. But my thought was, okay, I don't want a repeat of that. Don't want to almost die and then, ruin the wedding celebration and the excitement behind this whole trip. So I need to figure out a way to make blood sugars work to the best of my abilities. And I still want to enjoy the Greek food and the lifestyle and visit the towns nearby and all that. So what is the MVP, the minimum viable plan? Ultimately, it's a formula, as with everything that I teach you guys. Formulas equal freedom. Right? If you know what to do, then all that remains is taking action, is doing it. So if I can set up a formula to get my blood sugars to cooperate, to essentially corral them, right? Because the more chaotic life gets, the more chaotic blood sugars get, then I can survive. I can get by through the week and allow the show to go on. And so that was my plan. And so with this, my insulin needs skyrocketed. I needed to increase my insulin, but I needed to make sure it wasn't too much, because if I went low, that's another problem, right? What I found, and I'm going to do a whole masterclass on this for my clients, and they're going to get obviously the deep dive in it. But what I found is that I took more insulin in a day in some cases than I would in multiple days back home. I ended up doing up to 140% increase on my basal, which is a lot. Generally recommended not to go past 120% in extreme circumstances. In most endos, they'll tell you 110% is like your max. So I'm at 140%, and seeing that stabilized my numbers. My bolus ratios, my insulin to carb ratios, I was taking twice as much insulin for my meals. So to give you a reference point, if I wanted to eat 60 carbs, I had to dose for 120 carbs. And that would almost keep me from going high. In addition to that, my pre-bolus changed. My pre-bolus usually, and yours is, all of these numbers are different for you, by the way. Do not take this as like, oh, this is what you should do. This is not medical advice in any capacity. This is what works for me. This is why we set up blood sugar formulas with our clients, because blood sugar formulas are customized to each individual's needs, right? So my pre-bolus, typically, according to my pre-bolus formula, which is also we teach our clients, is 20 minutes. So my standard, if I'm at 100 blood sugar and I want to stay at 100 blood sugar the whole time, other variables considered, of course, I take around 20 minutes of a pre-bolus, and that allows me to stay nice and even keel, right? My pre-bolus on this trip turned into, drum roll, 45 minutes. So I'm taking 140% increased basal. I'm taking twice as much bolus insulin, and my pre-bolus has more than doubled. This is insanity, right? And so looking at these pieces, this is of course something that I can calculate, I can adapt with my formulas. So it's not this game of like, oh, I hope this works. It's like, okay, this is gonna work. I just have to be willing to do the work, right? And that's what the importance is behind having your MVP, your minimum viable plan. It's like, okay, how do I recalculate and adjust to get by, right? It's not gonna be pretty. I flew through my insulin, which is also why we want to pack extra when we go places. I've been in Europe before where I ran out of supplies. Yeah, scary. Twice they lost my luggage with insulin. I had to go get some more. Learned that lesson. Pack your insulin in your carry-on. I've run out of test strips when I was living in Italy, right? So pack extra, that's just a completely separate lesson. But two big golden nuggets I want to give you guys today that allowed me to make it through with relative sanity. It was still a very frustrating week, but I still had a lot of fun. It was still a blast. I was able to enjoy it. But number one is that when you encounter chaos, you might need to adjust your expectations. So for me, I no longer expected to go for my daily exercise, go for runs and workouts and all that. I no longer expected to have 100% time and range through the whole trip, you know. And to be fair, I was aiming for that. I was like, I'm gonna come back with the coolest story for the podcast. I was 100% while living my best life in Greece. I was not 100%. Blood sugars were difficult to manage. I had that trifecta, remember? Sick, can't work out, jet lagged, and crazy chaos and no carb counts. And like it was wild. But I ended up learning a new lesson, right? And that is to adjust expectations. I don't expect it to be perfect. I'm here to have fun and to be there for my friends. And then two, the second lesson is to adjust your formulas. If you're in a different situation, you're going to need a different plan, right? If the rules change, so must our strategies. So recognizing my insulin resistance from being sick, recognizing that I was going to be less insulin sensitive because I knew I wouldn't be working out that week, recognizing that the different carb counts and different macronutrient counts, remember higher fats and higher proteins are going to have an impact on blood sugars as well, and Greek food, Mediterranean diet, right? Lots of olive oil. I had lamb and salmon every single day. It was delicious. Lots of fattier foods. So I need to adjust for that. So adjusting your formulas. And with my clients, it's a simple recalculation. You know, you spend 2 minutes on some back of napkin math. You're like, okay, let's go enjoy falafel or like whatever's on the menu that day, right? And I had an absolute blast. It was some of the best food. My favorite food doesn't line up with that, but that was really good food. And it made some memories for a lifetime that I got to share with my friends, because blood sugars, while they were frustrating, while they were difficult and did demand a little extra attention from me because there were so many new variables at play, they didn't stop me, right? I still got to live my best life. We still went to remote locations on the island, went for, silly long hikes. And as somebody who was sick, probably shouldn't have done that part. But, enjoying our time out there, going to the beaches, going to these restaurants, little hole-in-the-wall places that had the best food, the best espresso affogato, and all these different things that really made the trip what it was. And at the end, my friends were like, oh, wait, yeah, you were sick this whole time. How are you doing? Right? And they were aware, they were attentive, trying to help out, but there's nothing they could do, right? So at the end, they were like, oh man, it's such a bummer you were sick, but like so glad that you were able to participate. I'm like, you're right, I know. I'm so happy that I was able to still do this stuff, because not too long ago, those things would have been the pin in the prison cell, right? Where I would have been like, you know what, forget it, lock up, I'm gonna stay home and not do anything because this is hard. And I wouldn't have known what to do. So in this case, knowledge is power. It allowed me, because I have my formula set up in place, to just do a simple adjustment. And while at first, not gonna lie, I was hesitant, I was shocked at how much insulin I needed. I was like, there's no way that calculation is right. Like, is my insulin not working? And I still need to take a look at my total daily dose, but that's going to be shocking when I look at those reports, because I love looking through my data. I always I always analyze my blood sugars and the reports. So I teach my clients to do as well. There's a lot of answers in there. But I expect my total daily dose to be a little ridiculous, because twice as much insulin for meals, 140% increase on basal. It's a lot. But I wanted to share this with you for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not perfect. I can hear it in my left ear now. My ear just cleared out. That's wonderful. I've had an ear infection for like 6 days as well. I'm just a mess right now. I'm like completely sick. I got back from the trip and I slept for 11 hours. It was wild. So a couple things I wanted to share. One, I'm human too, right? And even if I didn't get sick, I probably still wouldn't have had 100% time in range for the full week. And there's something to be said about that too. Perfectionism is only going to lead you to frustration and sadness, because perfection isn't achievable, at least not long term. You might have a day or two of perfection, right? And we have awards for our clients when they do hit 100% for 24 hours and beyond. We actually ship them these physical challenge coin awards, and it's like a gold coin. It's really cool. So we celebrate those milestones, but you shouldn't be striving for perfection always. And I think that that's what leads me into my second kind of golden nugget for today, is when you adjust your expectations, make peace with that, right? I knew I wasn't going to have perfect blood sugars, but I still wanted to be there for my friends. I wanted to enjoy the activities. I wanted to enjoy the food, right? And I wanted to do also while being safe. And my wife had let me know after I got back home that she had sent and then unsent a message before I could see it. While I was out there, we were in communication. She knew I was having a hard time with sickness and blood sugars and all that. And the message that she unsent was one that she said, as she was watching my blood sugars, because it was a 10-hour time difference, and she could watch them while I was sleeping, she said she recognized a similar pattern to the experience 7 years ago when we were still married. We got married 8 years ago. Actually just celebrated our 8th anniversary. So happy anniversary to us. 7 years ago when I almost died. Right before that happened, she recognized a similar pattern to what I was experiencing in Greece. And 7 years ago, I was not well equipped for handling chaos. When life gets crazy, so do blood sugars. I didn't know that, right? And I didn't know formulas back then. I didn't know what I was doing. And it almost killed me. And she saw those similar patterns, knowing full well that now I'm more well equipped. I have my blood sugar formulas. I use what's called the 80-20 blood sugar formula. It's more of a predictive model to know what's going to happen, so you know how to stabilize blood sugars. But seeing those patterns on my CGM graph, because she has my Dexcom follow, right? So she can see that from the US. She got nervous. And I can respect that, because she watched me almost die through a cell phone 7 years ago, halfway around the world. And I think that's the final take-home point for today, is that you don't get to decide when you're tested, when life decides to throw a curveball at you. And if you're not ready for it, that could be the end. And for me, it almost was. for me, that was the pivotal moment where I decided I will master my blood sugars, right? Like that's now a non-negotiable. And I did, right? It took me 2 years of daily experimentation and research and honestly obsession as well. But I did that so that those experiences would only be in the past, right? Where she wouldn't have to be worried, to be nervous and wonder if her husband was going to make it, if she was going to have to raise a kid on her own, like our daughter, right? And diabetes is a serious thing, especially type 1, where we're giving insulin and making these adjustments on the fly. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. We're titrating our own medication doses on a daily basis. But in this case, having blood sugar formulas allowed me to not only have fun and enjoy the trip, but also to not have my life be put in danger, to not have my safety be in question, and to allow my wife to have peace of mind because she knows I can do this, at least now. So I hope you found this one useful. Like I said in the beginning, actually, I told you guys I'd give you a link. So that whole story where I almost died in Paris, France, and of course the lessons I learned after the 2 years of experimenting and research, the foundations of blood sugar formulas, setting up your MVP. You can go find that training. It's totally free. You can go watch it. Diabetesinaction.com. Highly recommend it. I touch on diet, exercise, blood sugar foundations, and I share a bit more detail about that scary story. Last thing I want to wrap up with, a little golden nugget for you. Not necessarily the 80-20 blood sugar formula, because that's a full build that we do with our clients, right? It's all personalized. And that's why we work with clients on that, because it has to be personalized, because all of our insulin needs are different, right? But a piece of formulas, because there are many blood sugar formulas, and they all serve different purposes. But one of them, and the one that I used here, is your decision-making formula or your decision-making framework, where we use this, and I'm actually writing this in my book right now, this framework known as if, then, unless. So if, then statements are, if blood sugars are high, then take insulin. Great. You'd think that's the solution, right? But the word unless gives us some context to the decision-making process, right? So if blood sugars are high, then I take insulin, unless we're about to go for a 5-mile hike in a very remote location on an island. Well, then I might not want to go low, right? So maybe I won't give a ton of insulin because I'm high. Maybe I'll let the hike bring my high blood sugar down. So the statement of unless gives me more context to the situation. So for me, blood sugars are high. So if blood sugars are high, then I give 1 unit. Well, let's rephrase this. If blood sugars are 200, then I give 1 unit. Unless I'm super sick, then I give 2, right? And that's just me making up numbers. But you have to understand that every day with diabetes is different. Therefore, we need the unless statement in there to add context to what is happening today. How is today different than the last time I ran into this situation? And that is the key to your success with diabetes, is being able to adapt, right? So like I said earlier, you adapt your expectations, you adapt your formulas. That's it. So if you can adapt using the context, you'll be able to pivot a lot easier. So if, then, unless, one of my favorite statements that we teach, and really is a game changer for more of the introductory side of diabetes management. So go check out the training. Diabetesinaction.com. Guarantee it's going to set off some light bulbs for you and probably shock you with the story as well. That's all I got for you today. So go check it out, diabetesinaction.com. I'll see you guys in the next episode. If you're on YouTube with me, check out the next one right up there. Have an amazing rest of your day and keep up the fight.